Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more Encanto videos. So I'm going to do 3 videos where I talk about the 3 different sibling sets that we see throughout Encanto. So these would be the oldest 3, who are of course the children of Alma, who are of course Julieta, who I kept calling Juanita in the review. I apologize. Peppa, and then Bruno, of course, are her 3 children, and then of course Julieta has, of course, Isabella, Luisa, and Maribel. And then, of course, Peppa has Dolores, uh, Camilo, and Antonio. So I'm going to break these down into 3 different videos. So this first video is going to be about the children of Alma and Pedro Madrigal, who are, of course, as I just said, Julieta, Peppa, and Bruno. And I'm going to talk about them specifically, and then, of course, about their powers. I'm also going to talk about, in the cases of Julieta and Peppa, their husbands, because they're part of the family, obviously, big parts of the family, and any other, people that marry into the family, like most likely what we will see what happened with Dolores, almost not with Isabella, but what will happen with Dolores, we will see later on down the line, kind of possibly what will happen with that, or it'd be very interesting. I wouldn't mind an Encanto 2. I don't know if they're going to do an Encanto 2, but I wouldn't mind that. Hey, they're going to do like a Zootopia Plus or something like that on Disney Plus, so we'll see what happens with that. I don't know what that's going to entail. So I'm going to do a couple of these ones. So first up, I'm going to talk about Julieta. Julieta Madrigal is 50 years old. The 3 of them are triplets, so they're all 50 years old. And she is the oldest of all of the Madrigal children. She is the firstborn daughter, of course, of Alma and Pedro. And she and her 2 younger siblings were, of course, born very shortly before her mother and father and a bunch of the other people that were like in their initial town had to leave their home because it was being attacked by whoever it is that they're supposed to be. There was like a thought that it's supposed to be this is like the turn of the century war in regards to like the Thousand Days War or something like that happened in Colombia. Given kind of just like the level of technology and just kind of what we see in the course of the movie. And just kind of like little bits that we get. But they are born, and then them and their parents and a large number of other people have to flee their home. And, when they reach this river, their father chooses to stay back to kind of act as like a distraction to allow the others more time to escape. And of course, this is when, their mother, in her anguish, she basically just watched her husband most likely die or get taken off to his death, one of the 2. And, then up around them, well, what happens is, of course, this is where the candle comes from. They had this candle with them initially that they were using to like lead their way through the forest and such, because it was dark, of course, at night when they were leaving. And then the candle kind of glows and changes, and it gains the butterfly pattern, and then all around them, the Encanto grows up. These mountains and hills grow up around them that make this like safe little valley that they are able to live on. And of course, this also results in, the candle making their house around them, their casita. And then, of course, the 3 children then grow up in this house. And when they turn 5, they each receive a room. Or they each receive a door, and then when they open the door, they receive a gift. Now, Alma, as far as we are aware, has no power. She has her own room in the house, and she has her own door, but she herself does not have any powers, which is, of course, kind of gone over in the movie, but she's the one that has kind of this, like, connection to the candle, to a degree. Her, and then later on, Mirabel seem to have this connection to the candle and to the house. And one of the things that happens is, of course, Julieta's power is, of course, she has this power that allows her to heal. She, not any injury, but huge, a large number of injuries. Throughout the course of the movie, we see her heal a black eye from a villager, a fractured wrist from a villager, which does not look fun. The dog is barking in the background. I apologize. No, I'm not talking about Antonio yet. That's later. You can bark during his video. Actually, I prefer if you don't bark at all, but still. He probably saw something in the backyard. Sorry, the dog is still barking. I went and tried to make him stop, but I don't know what he saw in the backyard. It's the middle of the day. There shouldn't be any small animals out that aren't squirrels. He doesn't usually bark at squirrels that much. So I guess probably someone else is walking their dog, which happens. Um, but we see Julieta perform, several healing bits. She heals the black eye, the, fractured forearm. She heals her, Mirabelle's cut on her hand. When she cuts her hand, she heals that with, specifically with arapa con queso. And then she also heals her husband's bee stings a lot because her husband, Augustin, tends to get, is quite clumsy and he tends to get stung by bees quite a bit. And like the whole family is just like, yeah, you got stung by bees again. He's fine. His wife will fix him. um, but we see, this whole thing that she's able to do with lots of this other healing. It was stated by the director in either some Twitter conversations that he had with people, because people like he went like on Twitter and did like a Q&A on Twitter, and let people ask him some questions about the different characters and stuff. And one of them asked him the question about Julieta's powers, about her gift, and he says that she is able to tackle some serious ailments. Even healing Mirabelle's, she could heal Mirabelle's vision if she wanted to. So, Mirabelle and her father both wear glasses. They're the only members of the family that seem to wear glasses. She could heal them if she wanted to, but they don't see that as an illness or as a disease or something like that that needs to be cured. Julieta, even in the film, like compliments, Mirabelle's glasses, my daughter and her cool glasses and everything like that. And that's just adorable. So we see that. So they don't see that as an illness, but I would assume if there's something like a birth defect or something like that, within the community, that she would be able to heal that. Make something that they could then like feed to the child, and then that would heal the child, whatever the birth defect is or whatever that may be. I'm sure there's probably like limits. Like I don't think it says anything about like it says something along the lines of she can heal any non-fatal injury, and or if her cooking is specifically required to heal. So I'm assuming like if like, oh, someone got very very badly hurt and like it could kill them, like maybe they're like, I don't, like someone had a heart attack or something like that. She might be able to, and the dog's back. I apologize. She might be able to, make something specifically to heal them. It might just take a lot more power from her or something like that. But it doesn't seem like it seems to affect her ability to heal anybody. Her making the food doesn't seem to then like weaken her in any way. Like, oh, I can only use so much of my healing power before it starts to drain me. None of the Madrigals seem to have that problem where like if they overuse their gift, it makes them tired. I would assume there is like an upper limit of what they can do, but we didn't see that in the movie. For Dolores, it is like within a certain range she can hear everything, but we don't see a upper limit of how how hard of an injury Julieta can heal, how bad of an injury she can heal, or even how many injuries she can heal. Like I'm assuming if there if there was like maybe a natural disaster or something like happened where so many people got hurt, there might be something where she got like too many things that she needed to heal all at once, and like they may have to prioritize things, but maybe not. I'm assuming she probably also has like studied lots of other types of healing as much as she could within the Encanto. In regards to like just they may have had like other doctors with them when they had like fled, and maybe she studied with them to a degree to like learn about the human body and about healing and medicine and different things like that to a degree. But I don't know if that's ever specifically stated throughout the movie. But she is of course very kind and very patient and very gentle with her children and with her husband. The one time that she does seem to get a little bit forceful is against her mother in regards to the way that Alma has been treating Mirabelle, has basically been treating Mirabelle for the past 10 years, and how she's basically looked down on Mirabelle for the past 10 years since Mirabelle didn't get a gift. And, her parents never seem to have treated her really any different, even though she didn't get a gift. I mean, her father, Augustin, very sweet man, very good father, very good-hearted. Loves his mother and loves his wife and his children very, very much, and his nieces and nephew his niece and nephews very much, and his family very much. But he makes a comment of like, you and me and your uncle in this family, everybody else is exceptional. So the three of us are kind of unexceptional. Just like, just stop, Dad. I know that you're trying to be helpful, but please stop. And the dog's barking again. I'm sorry. Um, and so we see that with a lot of the things in regards to Mirabel's parents. Moving on, we have Peppa, who is of course Mirabel's aunt, and she is of course 50 years old. She's the second born child, the second of the triplets, born to Alma and Pedro Madrigal. I don't, it's never stated whether or not like the three were named before everything happened with Pedro, or like during the time frame when they were like escaping, they were born, or if it was after the Encanto had been formed that she named all three of her children. That's never stated. But what we see is, of course, for Peppa, her power is that she can control the weather. Whether or not that's only the weather within like a certain range of her, or she can like extend out that range, I would assume, to kind of include the entire Encanto. If like, oh, we need rain, she can make it rain, or whatever the other case may be, like, oh, we really want like this like this really happy festive day, and she can like make it really sunny and everything like that. Because it does appear that because they stayed on her wedding day to Felix, that she like kind of summoned a hurricane to a degree, and that they were married inside of a hurricane. Of course, they kind of blame some of that on Bruno, but we'll get to that. But of course, her, she has the ability to control the weather, and she makes it rain, snow, sleet, hail. I'm sorry, we just had a small snowstorm around here. She can make it, windy. She can make it, sunny, whatever the case may be, rainy, whatever, thunder, lightning. We see her do that multiple times throughout the course of the show, throughout the course of the movie, and her emotions are obviously very much tied to her powers. I wouldn't put her powers on the same level as, say, Storm from the X-Men, and the fact that, Storm can create this huge area of effect with her powers, and she has a lot more control over them. With Peppa, it is a bit more, she has like this little cloud over her head a lot of the time, and like her husband works very, I stated this in the review. Felix is a saint for putting up with her. And it's not that she's a bad wife or anything like that. She's not. She loves her husband and her children and her nieces and all of them and her family and everything. She loves them very, very much. But she just I wonder how many times he's been electrocuted. And had to go and have Julieta give him food to heal him over the course of their marriage, over the course of him and Peppa's marriage. But we see the two of them, and we see Peppa makes it storm a few times in the house, or like her mother is just like, don't we don't need any thunderclouds or anything like that, and she's just like petting her hair, clear skies, sunny skies, and like it makes it brighten up and everything like that. And multiple times, like Felix like grabs the cloud and like pushes it away from her. So I just find that funny. And by the end of the movie, she ends up having this better interaction with her brother, with Bruno, when he comes back. He tells her and he kind of apologizes. He's like, okay, so here's what happened. I was not intending to try to make you panic on your wedding day. I just simply saw that you were very stressed, and that letting some of that stress out in regards to making it rain or whatever is not a bad thing. Letting your emotions show is not a bad thing. Letting the rain come through or letting the hail come through, as opposed to having it always be sunny, is not a bad thing. And I think Peppa is possibly supposed to represent a little bit of like anxiety disorder. I think Peppa is supposed to represent this little bit of like this anxiety disorder type of a thing. And throughout the course of the movie, we see that shown multiple times. She's very stressed about, Antonio's gift day, because, if this fails, then maybe there are no more gifts, and maybe it wasn't Mirabel's fault, or maybe Mirabel didn't do anything wrong, but, it's like pressure on her child as opposed to Julieta's child this time around. And, we see her, stress quite a few times and make quite a few different things happen, electrocute people several different times. She electrocutes her own son on accident at one point. No, not like electrocutes him, but like shocks him at one point on accident. Um, and of course, at the end of the movie, after she's had like this little bit of a revelation and, kind of fixed things with Bruno, when they're doing like the last bit of the song, like her and Felix are dancing, like it's kind of like hailing over the top of them to show that she's kind of letting her emotions show a little bit more, not trying to like control or repress them anymore, which I find to be a very good example of that. And then, of course, finally, for the last Madrigal older sibling, we of course have Bruno Madrigal, who is of course the youngest child of Alma and Pedro Madrigal. He is 50 years old, obviously, as is his two older sisters because they are triplets. And he seems to be rather, well, he's not cowardly. He's just very more, um, well, he's very superstitious because we see him walking around like knocking on wood all the time and everything like that. Knock, 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 all over the place because he's quite superstitious, or like throwing salt over his shoulder at various points in time throughout the course of the movie, during the time frames when we see him. But of course, the way that Camilo and the way that Dolores and the others kind of portray him initially in the "We Don't Talk About Bruno" song, and that's kind of alluded to in the first song, "The Family Madrigal," where it's just like, "We don't talk about Bruno" type of thing, that, Mirabelle just kind of like skips over him in the family lineup and everything. And what we see, of course, is they kind of portray him not, I wouldn't say as like a villain, because there's no real villain in this movie, which I do like that they did that. It's just like not every Disney movie has to have a villain. This one does not really have a villain. But I guess the villain is, I guess, no, the grandma is not the villain. Alma is not the villain. Abuela is not the villain. But what we see happen is, of course, with Bruno, his powers, they let him see the future and everything like that, or see possible futures in the case of Mirabelle. But it's also along the lines of people then blame him for what he sees. Like, oh, he told me my goldfish was going to die, and it died. He told me I was going to get a gut, and I got a gut. That I was going to lose my hair, and I lost my hair. With Dolores, she says that, oh, he told me that my true love would be betrothed to another, which we see happen because Isabella, you know, why can't I remember his name? The boy that, oh God, what was his name? Guzman boy. I don't remember his name, sorry. But, he was initially supposed to be, engaged to Isabella, and that almost happened. He's down on one knee, ready to propose, and, that may have been the future that Bruno saw, and that's what he told Dolores. But then, they still end up together in the end of the movie. The two of them end up together, which is very good, but, Dolores still gets her guy, and then, Isabella can then marry someone that she actually wants to marry. As opposed to, having to marry like the very handsome man in town. Not that she doesn't agree that he's handsome, but he just wasn't the one that she wanted to marry. But Bruno sees all these different, prophecies and everything like that, futures and visions and everything like that. Of course, the most famous, the main one, of course, throughout the movie is, of course, the one about Mirabelle having like being at the center of this vision that will, either break the house or fix the house, break the house or fix the house, depending on what she does. And for Bruno, he left his tower, as he says. It was like, well, I left my tower. I couldn't leave my home. I love my family. I can't leave my family. I love my family. Also, have you seen those mountains? They're really hard to climb. True, they are very hard to climb. They don't look very easy to climb. But of course, with Bruno, it's he left to protect Mirabelle because, and it's like the youngest to the youngest of this, the youngest grandchild at the time was Mirabelle, and he is the youngest of his siblings, and she's the youngest of her siblings. And this, of course, before Antonio came along, but still, he left to protect her, and she even says that when she's realizing that, it's like, you left to protect me. And that's why he didn't show anybody the vision that he had. And, for the last 10 years, he's been living inside the walls of the house and behind the kitchen and having his own plate carved into the table. Oh, God, Bruno, I'm sorry. Um, but, you know, he still watched over the family, and we see him use his vision powers once in the flashback, of course, when him and when he's telling Mirabelle what happened. He's like, well, Abuela asked me to, my mom asked me to have this, do a vision and check and see what was going to happen to you. And I saw the vision, and, and then I broke the vision and left my tower and everything. And that was, 10 years ago. And then we see again when they go into, Antonio's room, and they do like the vision there, because, she destroyed his vision cave. By the way, I like the thumb pointing up in like Bruno's room. It's like your future awaits, point up. I'm like, okay, where did he sleep in this room? Because we see Isabella's room and we see Antonio's room, and we see that they have places to sleep. Where does Bruno sleep in his room? Or does he have to climb up all those stairs every single night to get to his room, to get to his bed? Is that what he had to do? I hope not. Um, but we don't quite see his bed in the room, so I mean, like, admittedly, he hasn't slept in there for a long time, so there's a possibility that the room may have shifted a little bit in that time frame, but I don't know. But they perform the vision, and it's this green swirling image stuff that goes around them, and then like it solidifies eventually into more of a thing that he can look at and show them. And that's the second vision that we see him have is this vision of Mirabelle, this continuation of the rest of the vision that he had seen when Mirabelle was a child. And it's, you have to, there's another person, and you have to fight her or hug her. And, you have to hug her in front of the candle, and it's Isabella. And Mirabelle is just like, oh God, why does it have to be her? And Bruno is just like, it's your sister. It's great. He's like showing her the image of like her hugging Isabella in front of the candle. And Mirabelle's just like, Bruno, well, throws the thing away. Oh, shatter. Okay, well, I guess that won't work. But throughout the course of the movie, we do see, Bruno has, those visions, and he mentions other things in regards to his visions. And I'm assuming that in regards to those visions that he's able to see, it's the more concrete something is, or the closer something is to happening to a degree, less variables involved, the easier it is to see. Like, oh, your goldfish is gonna die. The fact that your goldfish is gonna die is not really Bruno's fault. And it's not really your fault either. It's just your goldfish might be old and it might be ready to die. Same thing with all the other stuff, but like people put so much blame on Bruno. He's kind of the scapegoat of like, oh, he said this was going to happen, so then it will happen. But, and Mirabelle is like the center of the prophecy, and the fact that like this could happen, this could not happen, this could happen, this could not happen in regards to destroying the candle and destroying the house. And like that does come to fruition in the fact that the candle, melts down and extinguishes, and that the house collapses and everything. But then of course, Bruno, the other side of that vision is of course that Mirabelle and Isabella, like they did hug, and they did hug in front of the candle, and like they fixed their relationship, and like she kind of made her relationship a bit better with her sisters, which is very important. But then, and like it made the candle burn brighter, and we kind of saw like the cracks disappear. But then also what we see happen is Mirabelle and her grandmother, them fighting is what causes the house to be destroyed. And like all of these things coming to fruition, and the fact of like, you put too much pressure on all of us. Isabella doesn't need to be perfect all the time. Luisa will never be strong enough to do everything that you want her to do. You can't do all of that to everyone all the time. And, you can't put all that pressure on everyone. But the other half of the vision is that, the whole town comes together after everything happens, and Mirabelle is the one that helps her grandmother kind of get past this barrier in her heart, which is a little bit more something I'll go over with Mirabelle, of course. But, and at the end of the movie, Bruno even like shows up to try to like take the blame off of Mirabelle and put it onto himself, so his mother won't get angry at Mirabelle, which is adorable. And just side note trivia thing in regards to Bruno. This is the third Disney related movie that has had Bruno as the name of either a character or as the name of something, because the first one is, of course, Cinderella. Cinderella's dog is, of course, named Bruno, way back. And then, of course, in Pixar's Luca, which just came out this last year, there's Silenzio Bruno, who is, of course, which is, of course, one of the taglines of the movie, is one of the catchphrases out of the movie. And then, of course, now we have "We Don't Talk About Bruno" in regards to Bruno, of course, from Encanto. So we have those three ones, which I just find funny. Uh, but I mean, like, out of all three of the siblings that are, this set of siblings in regards to the oldest set, each of them got their gifts. Each of them have tried to use their gifts to make things better for the Encanto, and make things better for their family and for the Encanto and everything like that, to make life easier for everybody. And the problem is that, like, Julieta is, kind of this, she's the oldest. She's, kind of this, the not quite the golden child, but like kind of a little bit. But she's also, she, is in charge of like healing everybody in town, but that's not as stressful as the thing of like, oh, I can control the weather in regards to Peppa, or oh, I can see the future in regards to Bruno. I'm sure Bruno has also gotten to be quite observant over the years. And the fact of like, oh no, you're gonna grow a gut, and then it happens. Well, that's kind of more on you than on Bruno. It's not like he walked around all day long handing visions out to people. It's like, oh, here's your vision. Oh, here's your vision. Oh, vision for you, vision for you. It's not like he did that. But that's kind of like what they kind of play it to be in We Don't Talk About Bruno. But that's what I have for these three. Now I'm going to go record the video about Mirabelle and her siblings. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and as scattershot as it is, scatterbrained as it is, because my brain is fun. But I do thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye! I wish you could see yourself the way I do. You are perfect just like this. You are just as special as anyone else in this family.